theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Hi Warren, I should pat myself on the back for being such a great friend in introducing you to the joy of Labubu.
Yeah, I didn't know what Labubu was, and now I do.
You made me say it like 5 times on the phone.
I said, how do you spell it? Labubu. Do you know what? It's interesting because when I go into the city here and I go to the gym or to work and there's people carrying bags and they've got them attached to their bags. Are they the fluffy things that we see?
Yeah, they're the cute, fluffy things that you see hanging off of people's bags the last few weeks.
I wondered what they were. I've seen them everywhere. Tell us about them. What's a Labubu?
They're little monster figurines, and they're designed by I think Chinese-Canadian artist. It's produced by a Chinese company. The owner of the company has become very quickly a huge billionaire because of the meteoric rise of these figurines from a company's name is Pop Mart, and they have shops everywhere. Except you can't really walk into a Pop Mart to buy a Labubu. They're not there.
Oh, really? The one you sent me today looked like Miss Piggy with a pair of leather boots on. You said that should be mine.
Yes, people dress them up. You see, you get a Labubu, and they're just furry little monsters, and then you just have fun by making or buying items of clothing to dress them up, customize them for yourself.
Have you got any?
I got myself 2 last week, and I am so happy. I feel like how you feel when you're talking about your dog.
Oh, really? So you're really attached to them, to these Labubus?
I am. All this to say that my life is filled with joy from this kind of crazy distraction.
Oh, you know what? And if that's what they do, then that's great. Is there something serious behind them, though? Is there sort of a movement behind the Labubus? Labubu.
I think that, culturally we always have fads. It always comes and goes. There are always stupid things that people spend the money on. It has happened for decades, ever since, capitalism went into high gear. But what I have noticed with my experience of it is, like I said, you can't walk into a shop and expect to buy it off the shelf. I have had to talk to a lot of friends.
Oh, so they're quite hard to get.
They are very hard to get. You can pay a huge margin and buy it on eBay or something, but you're paying like 3-4 times more than the original price. But then what I did was I went around finding out which of my friends know about it, which of my friends are deep into the culture of it, and I found Luke, who we actually usually bond over collecting records. I didn't know he was collecting Labubu, and I found out that he knows all about them, and he was able to find 2 of them for me at the normal price of $32, a very modest price. And I got them, and I'm happy. And I feel like, it allowed us to catch up, we have to meet up for dinner, sit over a dinner table and talk about these silly things for an hour or so. And then in a strange way, you kind of have a deeper friendship.
I love it. Suzy, do you know what? Can I be honest with you? I've seen them on people's bags, and I thought, why are people buying fluffy little toys based on petroleum and just splitting them to their bags? What have we come to? I was in this sense of negativity over them, but you know what? This is a good lesson for me. Don't always assume that everything's bad.
Yeah, it's bad and it's good. I think we know that people will spend their money in stupid ways anyway, and I feel like this is not the stupidest way. And for me, it kind of tells me that I do need the distraction from a lot of the stuff that is happening in the world, and I am the kind of person that can get deep into really bad rabbit holes on YouTube and online about the horrible political things that are happening, especially overseas, all the wars and all that. And for the last few days, I felt like I'm splitting my time online a bit, not just looking at wars and that sort of negative stuff. I'm also looking at a lot of Labubu content, and I feel like, I can allow myself that for a bit.
Then maybe it's just what the world needs. Have you named your Labubus?
No, I like the name that they came with. They came with prescribed names. One's called Happiness and one's called Serenity. Can't get any better than that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I might have to have a chat to your friend Luke, and we need to source me that little Miss Piggy one in leather.
Yeah, and we'll extend our friendship groups. Isn't that nice?
I think it's great. It's good. It's offline too.
Yeah, you have to meet them, right?
Yeah, love it, Suzy. We're going to do it, but today we're talking. I can just see myself. I'll be amongst all those people at the gym with a little labubu hanging off my bag. Suzy Wrong. We're talking about Willem and Frieda. It's streaming on SBS On Demand now. Tell us about it.
It was World War II, and ruthless persecution of Jewish people was widespread across Europe. Good people formed resistance efforts everywhere, but few are remembered. In this week's documentary, Willem and Frieda, Defying the Nazis, streaming on SBS, presenter Stephen Fry brings us the story of two openly queer war heroes who were never given their due. Willem Arendiers and Frieda Belifante were both artists in Amsterdam, involved with the Crisis Control Committee, who forged ID documents to help Jewish people escape capture, deportation, and execution. When the Nazi security services cracked down on that resistance network, Willem was captured and subsequently killed, but Frieda was lucky to be able to flee and seek refuge in Switzerland. The documentary includes a small number of photographs of both main characters and has the good fortune of using interview footage of Frieda from 1994. But there are otherwise no reenactments or dramatizations of this war story. Stephen Fry is extremely passionate in sharing this reconstructed narrative of queer excellence, and his personal reflections are certainly valuable, but I struggled to stay engaged. The film is only 68 minutes long, but I felt that a lot of it was slightly dry and repetitive. Willem and Frieda, Defying the Nazis, succeeds at making its point early on, but doesn't have much more to give after the first half hour. Nevertheless, there is probably nothing more important in today's climate than to be reminded of what fascists will do when we don't work hard enough to stop them. People are targeted in large numbers every day at war zones including Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan. Donald Trump has removed essential services not only from the American people, but also from developing nations all over the globe in efforts that look very much like eugenics-based extermination. Warren, how did you come across this documentary, Willem and Frieda, Defying the Nazis?
Do you know what? I was just playing with my TV, and I came across it and I started watching it, and I mean, I quite like Stephen Fry. I enjoy watching him and his presentation, and I watched it and I thought, oh wow, what an interesting story. I agree with you in terms of the documentary. I found a little bit, it was dragging it out, but there were some really key points that came across, and I don't know if you noticed this, Suzy, but that silence, as you watch the documentary initially, you learn that one of the first things, or one of the first facts that we hear, is that 50,000 gay men were persecuted under the Nazis before any other group, and no one objected to it. And it almost was
the silencing is a very big part of these operations. That's what's happening now. You know, whenever we try to speak up against certain parties in certain wars, the way the system comes back at you is so ferocious. And I'm not talking about officials targeting me, but like if in certain instances I might innocently share an Instagram post which I found to be very moving, that, you know, has sympathy for people dying in Gaza, I get friends, people I thought were friends who were on the other side of the war, you know, criticizing me and scolding me for it. And you know, when you can deal with that once or twice, but if it's ongoing, you just learn to shut up.
And that's what happened. We saw these 50,000 gay men persecuted. No one said anything. No one said anything. It was almost like the wedge, you know, the thin edge of the wedge that started it all. It was like the test to say, okay, well, we can get away with this. And it was the minority groups that were targeted first. And it reminded me too of what's going on with the trans people around the world at the moment. It's almost like they're the easy target. And if the rest of us don't say something about it, who's next?
Yeah, there's always easy targets, I feel. You know, once that the first batch of easy targets are done with, I think people get so used to that kind of behavior that it's so easy to turn anyone else into the new easy targets.
Exactly, but it's like a test to see what can we get away with, and therefore it's important that we do stand up to that. The other thing is also the courage that comes when we're not the target. So FRIEDA and WILLEM could have focused on survival, but they risked everything for others. Forging documents, eventually blowing up the Nazi records office. I mean, that is allyship, isn't it? Really?
It's great to see. I mean, like, I feel bad that, that I always feel like I can do more with all kinds of things. There are all kinds of things happening. And then I guess the documentary is inspiring. And also I feel like really proud. I feel like in the documentary you can see that a lot of LGBT people can understand injustice in a very visceral way. And I think we experience it firsthand. So I think our tolerance for that is a bit lower, and I'd like to think that I'm part of a community that's hopefully better at standing up for things, hopefully.
We're chatting with Suzy Wrong about WILLEM and FRIEDA, a deeply moving SBS documentary celebrating two queer artists who fought back against Nazi rule and how their bravery was remembered very differently to others. And I suppose this is a bit of a spoiler, but I do want to read out what Stephen Fry reads out at the end, which is WILLEM's final words and before his executions. And he said, "Tell the world that homosexuals are not cowards, that they are no less courageous than anyone else." But it's interesting, Suzy, how queer courage has been overlooked in favour of, the straight hero narratives. Yet, all throughout his resistance, WILLEM was proud. Standing up in court at his trial, being cheeky to them and, I don't care. Like, being proud the whole way through. I mean, that is bravery.
It was fascinating to see WILLEM and FRIEDA being out at such a difficult time. They were out from the 1910s, 1920s onwards, and I think they said that WILLEM was 17 when he came out in the 1910s, which was astonishing to me. I just find it so hard to even imagine what that must have been like. And then from there, the courage went on to extend beyond himself to helping protect other people. It's wonderful.
And FRIEDA got a recognition for her bravery. WILLEM's name was scrubbed from history. Wreaths were destroyed. After the war, his legacy was buried basically because he was gay. I didn't realise that there was I knew about the reclaiming of the pink triangle during the AIDS crisis as, a symbol of bravery and pride and activism, even though the Nazis used the pink triangle to brand and shame gay men. But I didn't realise that there was a memorial in Amsterdam, which is the Homo Monument in Amsterdam, which is that giant triangle that honours persecution of LGBTQ plus people, especially those targeted by the Nazis. I didn't know that existed, but how lovely. If only we had one here in Melbourne.
That's very moving. I think we see a lot, I learn about a lot of history through film. I'm not a good reader, unfortunately, but I'm an avid watcher of documentaries and film and all that. And I feel like I've learned a fair bit about Jewish people during World War II. I've only ever heard kind of peripherally about the pink triangles and how gay men in particular, were targeted in similarly brutal ways, but I haven't heard as many stories about those. So it's good to have a little bit of that in this documentary. There was some footage. I wasn't sure if they were accurate, but that it was good to have some footage, just be able to witness some of it.
And I think I didn't know about that. I didn't know about the 50,000 gay men that were the test people that were persecuted by the Nazis first before everything else happened. I didn't know about that. I wasn't taught that in history.
I knew about the pink triangle in the late 80s, and then I think somehow I was able to get some information that it came from war times, where it was the equivalent to the Star of David that they used for Jewish people at the time, when they were being rounded up. And I knew that they gave queer people or gay men pink triangles. So I knew that it happened. But the information that we have about gay men being captured and subsequently a lot tortured and murdered, the information about that is so scarce in comparison to what happened to the Jewish people.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm glad I watched it. Willem and Frieda, you can catch it on SBS on demand. Suzy Wrong, what are we watching next week along with your, what do you call them, Labubu dolls?
I'll be watching this movie with my Labubu dolls.
Me too. We can watch them together.
We've got A Nice Indian Boy next week. A Nice Indian Boy. See it at cinemas in Melbourne and Sydney. Naveen and Jay are getting married, but Naveen's traditional family is not making things very easy. Check out this American film, A Nice Indian Boy, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
This
Bye-bye.
is Joy Drive.